So in a recent breakdown of modern social habits, a, a pretty staggering number of adults admitted something profoundly uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah. The vanishing act.
Right. They say they would rather completely vanish from someone's life, just, ghost them entirely, than have a 30-second conversation admitting they changed their mind about something.
Which is wild, right?
It is. We live in this era of frictionless, instant communication, but our anxiety around simple, everyday social friction has literally never been higher.
Yeah, I mean, why is our fear of awkwardness overriding basic empathy?
Exactly. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking this fascinating stack of linguistic and sociological analysis that targets this exact modern
It
crisis.
really is a crisis.
Our mission today is to equip you, the listener, with the vocabulary to handle awkward social situations. We want to help you set boundaries gracefully using 5 essential native English expressions.
It's the paradox of the modern age, really. We have like a dozen apps designed to keep us constantly connected, but we're seemingly losing the underlying framework required to actually navigate those connections when things get complicated.
Well, because setting a boundary, or declining an invitation, or confronting a shared problem that requires a specific kind of linguistic toolkit.
Right, and without it, people panic. They either aggressively burn bridges or they retreat into total silence.
Which nobody wants. So what we're looking at today isn't just a list of vocabulary words. These are highly evolved social mechanisms designed to sort of absorb the shock of human interaction.
I love that phrasing, shock absorbers.
I always think of navigating these social situations, whether it's at a high-stakes networking event or just a casual weekend brunch, as being a lot like trying to learn a really tricky, complex dance.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
You're out there on the floor trying to maintain your own rhythm, desperately trying to coordinate with a partner who might be listening to a completely different song.
And inevitably, you're going to step on someone's toes,
Or they're going to step on yours.
which is where the anxiety spikes, especially when you add the layer of trying to perform this dance in a second language.
Oh, absolutely. Or in a corporate environment where the stakes feel artificially high. You want to be polite, you want to preserve your relationships, but you also have this desperate psychological need not to overcommit yourself.
Right, you need protective gear.
Yes. If social interaction is a tricky improvised dance, think of the 5 phrases we're exploring today as your protective steel-toed shoes.
Nice.
They keep your toes safe, they prevent you from injuring anyone else, and most importantly, they keep the whole dance moving smoothly instead of just grinding to a painful halt.
So true.
So let's get right into the first one, which is an absolute cornerstone of the polite decline, and that is take a rain check.
Okay, so the mechanics of taking a rain check are just brilliant in their simplicity.
Break it down for us.
At its core, the phrase simply means you are politely declining an offer or an invitation right now in the present moment, but you are actively suggesting that you do it at a later date.
So you're shutting the window, but leaving the door wide open.
Exactly. It's the ultimate tool for face saving.
Let's ground this in a scenario that happens to virtually everyone. So imagine a good friend texts you on a Friday afternoon. They want to grab dinner and drinks tonight.
Oh, I know this feeling well.
Right. But you've had a brutal week. The sheer thought of putting on hard pants, commuting across town, making conversation in a noisy restaurant, it feels like climbing Mount Everest.
You just want your couch.
You desperately want your couch.
So the natural instinct for a lot of people, especially those who value directness, or maybe they're translating directly from a language with different politeness norms, is to just state the literal truth.
Which brings us to the what not to say.
Right.
If you reply to that friend with, I'm busy, I can't go, or I don't want to go out tonight, you are technically conveying accurate information. But socially, you've just dropped a bomb on the conversation.
Yeah, it sounds incredibly blunt, almost hostile.
Because it operates as a conversational dead end. Human beings are, incredibly sensitive to rejection.
Very sensitive. When we hear a flat no, our brains often process it not as a rejection of the specific event, the dinner, but as a rejection of the relationship itself.
A blunt refusal doesn't offer any reassurance that the connection is still secure.
So you swap out the blunt refusal for our phrase. You text back, I would love to, but I'm completely wiped out. Can I take a rain check?
The entire emotional temperature of the exchange drops immediately.
It really does.
But why? What is the actual psychology behind the word rain check that makes it feel like a warm hug instead of a cold shoulder?
Well, it accomplishes a very specific psychological shift. Think about the origin of the word. It comes from baseball.
Right, the literal weather.
Yeah. If a game was canceled due to bad weather, an act of God, something completely out of the team's or the fans' control of the stadium, gave you a literal piece of paper, a rain check, to come back another day.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
So when you use it socially, you are subconsciously externalizing the blame. You're communicating, my intention to see you is a resounding, yes, I value you.
But the weather is bad.
Metaphorically, yes. It's merely the external logistics of this specific moment, my fatigue, my schedule, that are causing a delay.
You're separating your rejection of the event from a rejection of the person.
Precisely. You are affirming the relationship while declining the commitment. You're handing them a social promissory note.
And that promissory note isn't just useful for getting out of Friday night drinks. It is an incredibly powerful boundary-setting tool in the workplace.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's look at a professional context. You're at your desk, staring down a massive career-making deadline that's due at 3:00 p.m.
High stress.
Exactly. And a colleague from another department pops over and invites you to grab a casual lunch.
The stakes here are subtly different, but just as high. In a corporate environment, you have to protect your time to actually execute your job, but you simultaneously have to manage your internal optics.
You don't want to gain a reputation as the antisocial coworker who refuses to network.
Right. So if you just say, I can't, I'm working, you sound like a martyr. Or worse, you make them feel guilty for taking a lunch break.
But if you hit them with, thanks so much for thinking of me, I'm buried under this 3:00 p.m. deadline, can I take a rain check for next week? You've completely protected your boundary.
You've neutralized the threat to the relationship. You establish that you are busy and important, which is good professional framing, but you immediately signal that you view the colleague as a priority for the near future.
It's a flawless maneuver for maintaining collegial warmth while ruthlessly defending your calendar.
It really is.
But sometimes, the issue isn't that you need to definitively say no. Sometimes you don't need a rain check because you actually do want to see the person.
Right.
But your day is just a chaotic mess and you can't commit to a specific time. You need a buffer for uncertainty.
Which brings us to the necessity of flexibility and our second expression, play it by ear.
I use this phrase constantly. To define it, playing it by ear means agreeing to handle a situation spontaneously as it develops in real time, rather than locking yourselves into a strict, predetermined plan.
It's an agreement to embrace ambiguity. We live in a culture obsessed with hyperscheduling. People treat their personal lives with the same rigorous, optimized calendar blocks as their work lives.
Yeah, but treating leisure time like a military operation strips all the joy out of it.
It does.
I like to view this through a musical lens. If you're playing in a classical symphony orchestra, you have sheet music. Every single note, every pause, every tempo change is strictly mapped out on the page.
Right.
If the flutist decides to go off script, the entire performance derails. But playing it by ear is the linguistic equivalent of a jazz musician.
Oh, I love that.
You know the basic key you're in, you know the people you're playing with, but you are improvising the actual notes on the spot, reacting to how the music feels in the moment.
That analogy gets right to the heart of it because human interaction is inherently jazz. It's unpredictable. Consider a classic high-friction scenario. A friend texts you on Wednesday morning, "What time do you want to meet up tonight?"
The dreaded Wednesday text.
Right. The problem is, your day is a total wild card. You might get stuck in a late meeting, traffic could be awful, or you might finish early.
If you try to force a classical symphony plan onto that jazz reality, you are engineering your own stress.
Exactly.
If you text back, let's meet at exactly 6:05 p.m., you're going to spend the next 8 hours watching the clock, rushing your work, and raising your cortisol levels just to hit an arbitrary target.
And the alternative mistake, the what not to say, is delivering a stressful non-answer.
Oh, yeah.
If you just reply, "I don't know yet," you drop all the emotional labor of the interaction squarely into your friend's lap.
I don't know is a conversational deadweight.
It is. It leaves the other person in limbo, unsure if they should make other plans, eat dinner, or just sit around waiting for you.
It feels dismissive. But if you reply, "My afternoon is totally unpredictable, let's play it by ear and text around 5:00," the dynamic shifts entirely. You're not being evasive. You're proposing a strategy.
You're establishing a collaborative agreement to be flexible. You're explicitly telling them, I am committed to the idea of seeing you, but I need us both to accept that the execution is going to require some real-time adjustments.
It removes the pressure from both of you.
It's a lifesaver for weekend planning, too.
Oh, definitely.
Say you're discussing a Saturday hangout with a friend. You know you want to spend the day together, but neither of you wants to commit to a punishing itinerary of brunch at 10:00, museum at 1:00, movie at 4:00.
That's not a weekend. That's a second job.
Overscheduling leisure time actually triggers the same burnout mechanisms as overworking. Agreeing on Friday night to just play Saturday by ear is a boundary against the stress of overcommitment.
It gives you permission to wake up, check your energy levels, check the weather, and make decisions based on your actual present state reality.
Rather than a hypothetical plan you made 3 days ago.
Exactly. So take a rain check, gracefully handles the no, and play it by ear, gracefully handles the maybe. Those are incredible tools when the stakes revolve around scheduling.
Very true.
But what happens when the awkwardness has nothing to do with time?
Uh-oh.
What if the awkwardness is a massive, heavy, suffocating tension sitting right in the middle of a room, and everyone is collectively pretending it doesn't exist?
Now we're moving from the logistics of social interaction into the deep psychology of collective denial. This brings us to our third expression, which is arguably one of the most vivid and heavily utilized idioms in American English.
The elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room.
The imagery of this phrase is so absurd that we often forget to appreciate it.
Yeah.
If you actually visualize it, imagine a standard, somewhat cramped living room. You got a nice rug, a delicate glass coffee table, and right in the center, taking up 90% of the space, is a 5-ton, clumsy, breathing elephant. It's knocking over lamps with its trunk. The floorboards are groaning under its weight.
And lined up against the walls are people holding little teacups, chatting out the weather, deliberately looking anywhere except at the giant wild animal destroying the furniture.
That perfectly captures the definition. An elephant in the room is an obvious major problem or a highly uncomfortable truth that absolutely everyone in the situation is acutely aware of, but everyone is actively avoiding discussing.
Sociologists call this pluralistic ignorance.
Pluralistic ignorance.
Yeah. It's a fascinating phenomenon where a majority of group members privately reject a norm or recognize a problem, but incorrectly assume that everyone else accepts it, so nobody speaks up.
Wow.
The cognitive toll of maintaining that shared delusion is exhausting.
Let's look at how this plays out in a high-stakes professional environment. Picture a tense boardroom meeting. The company just lost its absolute biggest client, a catastrophic hit to the bottom line.
Everyone knows it.
Everyone knows. There are rumors of layoffs swirling. The team sits down for their weekly status meeting, and the manager powers up a slide deck and starts enthusiastically going through routine spreadsheets and minor project updates.
The cognitive dissonance in that room would be deafening. Nobody in those chairs gives a single thought to the minor project updates.
They're all mentally calculating if they're going to have a job next month.
Exactly.
The tension just builds and builds. It's suffocating.
And this is the danger of the what not to do here, which is simply staying silent. When leadership ignores the elephant in the room, it rapidly erodes trust.
Yeah. The team realizes that the external narrative the company is pushing does not match the internal reality they are all experiencing.
If you don't name the tension becomes the only thing people can focus on. Eventually, someone has to have the courage to interrupt the spreadsheet presentation and say, look, before we dive into these metrics, we need to address the elephant in the room regarding the lost client.
And the second someone says that, you can almost hear the collective exhale. Why is using that specific phrase so effective in a corporate standoff?
Well, because it acts as a linguistic pressure release valve. It utilizes metaphor to slightly soften the confrontation.
It's much more palatable to say, let's address the elephant, than to slam your fist on the table and yell, why is everyone lying about the fact that the company is failing?
Exactly. It names the anxiety, validates the shared reality of everyone in the room, and formally grants permission to shift the agenda to the actual crisis.
It takes this invisible, suffocating dread and turns it into a tangible object that the group can actually manipulate and deal with.
Yes.
And it's equally powerful in our personal lives. Imagine you're hanging out with a tight-knit group of friends. Over the weekend, 2 people in this group had a massive, brutal, very public argument.
Oh boy.
Now it's Tuesday, everyone's at a dinner party, and those 2 people are sitting across from each other.
The forced laughter. The overly enthusiastic compliments about the appetizers.
Exactly. The exhausting performance of normalcy. Ignoring the elephant doesn't make it disappear. It just ensures that every interaction feels incredibly fake.
In a personal context, pointing out the elephant is actually a profound act of care.
How so?
Well, saying, okay, guys, the tension here is crazy. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, is a refusal to participate in a toxic silence. It stops the agonizing performance and forces the rupture out into the open so that the actual work of healing or resolution can begin.
You're forcing reality back into the room.
Right.
But let's say you do that. You bravely point out the elephant. You have the messy, difficult conversation. Sometimes confronting that reality forces you to look inward. You might realize that a decision you made previously was wrong, or the circumstances have changed so drastically that your original plan no longer makes sense. You need to pivot, which requires a completely different kind of boundary setting.
Which brings us directly to our fourth phrase, having second thoughts.
This one deals entirely with internal conflict.
Yes.
To put it simply, having second thoughts means you are beginning to seriously doubt a decision you previously made, and you are in the process of changing your mind.
It's the psychological realization that your initial assessment of a situation or your initial commitment is no longer aligned with your current reality.
Let's start with a low-stakes scenario that causes an unreasonable amount of anxiety. You and a friend bought tickets on a Tuesday for a late-night comedy show happening on Friday.
Okay.
On Tuesday, it seems like a brilliant, fun idea. But now it's Friday night. It's pouring rain, you had a brutal week at work, and the idea of staying out until 1:0 feels more like a physical punishment than a reward.
Your internal state has shifted dramatically, generating second thoughts. The friction occurs in how you choose to bridge the gap between your internal shift and your external commitment to your friend.
So if we look at the what not to say, it's abruptly canceling without context. If you text, "I'm canceling, I don't want to go anymore," it comes across as erratic, dismissive, and potentially selfish. It's a harsh boundary that feels like you're slamming a door in their face.
It's jarring because it completely excludes them from your thought process. You're just handing down a final verdict without any emotional scaffolding.
But if you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I'm having serious second thoughts about going out tonight. My energy is just completely zero," you change the entire architecture of the conversation.
Having second thoughts is a remarkably gentle and vulnerable phrase. It communicates doubt without sounding unstable. It invites the other person into your internal dilemma.
You're showing them the process.
Exactly. You're effectively saying, I value our plan, but my capacity has changed, and I'm struggling. It practically begs for an empathetic response. A good friend will likely hear that and say, oh man, no worries, let's just take a rain check.
Look at that, the ultimate conversational combo move.
It really is.
But I want to challenge this concept for a second, because I think a lot of listeners struggle deeply with this. We are heavily culturally conditioned to revere decisiveness.
We really are.
We idolize people who stick to their guns and never back down. Doesn't admitting that you're having second thoughts make you look weak or flaky or unreliable?
I'd actually argue the exact opposite. Rigidly sticking to a decision that no longer serves you or that is actively harmful to you simply out of a misplaced pride or a fear of appearing indecisive is where true weakness lies. It's intellectual and emotional inflexibility. Expressing that you are having second thoughts is an indicator of high emotional intelligence and cognitive agility.
How so? Let's apply that to a much bigger scenario where the stakes are life-altering.
Okay, consider a major financial commitment. You're at a dealership, you've been sitting there for 4 hours, the salesperson is applying immense pressure, and you verbally agree to buy a car that is stretching your budget to the absolute breaking point. Or maybe you just verbally agreed to sign a lease on an apartment that you intuitively know isn't right. You leave, the adrenaline wears off, and the cold panic sets in. You realize you've made a massive mistake.
The sunk cost fallacy starts creeping in. You feel like because you said yes, you have to follow through.
Exactly. If you suppress those second thoughts out of a fear of looking weak or inconveniencing the salesperson, you lock yourself into years of financial hardship.
Right.
But recognizing that panic and actively naming it, calling the broker and saying, I'm having second thoughts about signing this lease, I need to pull back, is a profound tool for self-advocacy.
It demonstrates that you have the capacity to absorb new data.
Yes. In this case, your own financial anxiety, you reevaluate your position and course correct. It is the hallmark of mature, rational decision-making.
It's an act of self-preservation. It is incredibly healthy to change your mind as long as you communicate it. The entire system hinges on that communication.
Which is the perfect segue to the darkest corner of modern social interaction. Because there is a highly pervasive trend right now where people experience second thoughts, or they encounter an elephant in the room, and instead of communicating any of it, they opt for the most destructive exit strategy available.
They skip the communication entirely. They drop the conversational tools, abandon the dance floor, and vanish. Which brings us to our fifth, final, and most infamous expression.
Ghosting, or to ghost someone.
Ghosting.
The definition here is stark and universally understood. Ghosting is the act of suddenly and completely stopping all communication with another person without any warning, without any explanation, and providing zero closure.
Just gone.
One day the connection is active, the next day they are a phantom.
The term exploded into the mainstream via the world of online dating, which makes perfect sense, given the mechanics of dating apps. Let's look at that classic scenario. You go on a date, you go on a second date. From your perspective, the chemistry is great.
Everything's going well.
You text them the next afternoon, had a great time last night, and you get nothing.
Yeah.
A day goes by, you send a light follow-up. Nothing. You've been ghosted.
It's a uniquely modern form of psychological torture. Psychologists refer to the aftermath of being ghosted as ambiguous loss.
Ambiguous loss.
Yes. It's a type of grief that occurs without any definitive closure or understanding. When someone politely declines you, even if they bluntly say, "I didn't feel a romantic connection," you have tangible data.
Right.
Your brain can process that rejection, categorize it, and begin moving on. Ghosting deprives you of data. It traps the person in a void, forcing them to endlessly replay interactions and question their own perception of reality.
Is the ultimate social failure.
Yeah.
It is the exact opposite of using a boundary-setting phrase. But it's not just confined to Tinder and Bumble anymore. The contagion of ghosting has infected the professional world.
The corporate ghosting epidemic is staggering. Think about the power asymmetry in a job hunt.
Oh, it's brutal.
A candidate goes through 3 grueling rounds of interviews. They submit a custom portfolio. The hiring manager shakes their hand and says, "We'll let you know our decision by Friday." And
Okay.
Friday comes and goes. The candidate emails HR, silence. The company, a massive entity, completely disappears on the applicant.
It's wildly unprofessional, but it perfectly illustrates the central insight of today's deep dive.
Yeah.
When you look at the underlying mechanics of ghosting across dating, friendships, and corporate hiring, I don't believe that the vast majority of people who ghost are acting out of malice.
I agree.
They aren't sitting in a villain's lair plotting to inflict ambiguous loss on someone.
It's rarely a calculated act of cruelty. It's almost always an act of profound cowardice fueled by a lack of linguistic tools.
Exactly. People ghost because they fundamentally lack the vocabulary and the emotional regulation to execute the first 4 situations we discussed. Ghosting is just a symptom of a catastrophic failure to set boundaries.
It all connects. A person ghosts after a 3rd date because they feel the connection fading, but they are terrified of the awkwardness of saying, "I'm having second thoughts about this."
Yes.
A massive corporation ghosts a desperate job applicant because there's an elephant in the room. Perhaps the department lost its budget for the role, and the HR rep lacks the courage to deliver the bad news.
Or a friend ghosts you for the weekend because they are overwhelmed and don't know how to simply say, "I'm exhausted, I need to take a rain check."
When you don't have the steel-toed boots to navigate the friction of the dance, your only perceived option is to flee the building entirely, leaving your partner stranded alone on the floor.
Which reinforces why understanding these phrases isn't just about sounding like a native English speaker. It's about developing the psychological infrastructure to be a reliable, communicative human being in a society that makes it entirely too easy to disappear.
When you master these tools, you insulate yourself against the urge to ghost, and you drastically reduce the anxiety of human connection.
Let's quickly retrace the path we took today, because it really operates as a cohesive blueprint for navigating the awkwardness of life.
We started with the grace of the polite decline. When you need to fiercely protect your energy but want to preserve a valued relationship, you don't slam the door. You offer a bridge to the future and take a rain check.
When the modern pressure to optimize every minute of your schedule becomes suffocating, you collaborate with the uncertainty of life. You embrace the jazz and agree to play it by ear.
When pluralistic ignorance takes over a room and everyone is silently suffering under the weight of an unacknowledged truth, you become the pressure release valve. You bravely name the tension and address the elephant in the room.
When new data, shifting circumstances, or your own internal compass tells you that a previous commitment is now a mistake, you refuse to be a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. You honor your right to change your mind by admitting you are having second thoughts.
And by consistently utilizing those four mechanisms, you maintain your integrity. You never have to take the coward's way out. You never have to inflict the pain of ghosting someone because you possess the conversational fortitude to face friction head on.
It all comes down to respect. Respect for your own boundaries and a profound respect for the shared reality of the people you interact with. As we wrap up this deep dive into the messy, beautiful, sometimes agonizing dance of social interaction, I want to leave you with a provocation to chew on for the rest of your week.
Let's hear it.
Take a hard look at your own life right now. Scroll through your unread text messages, look at your calendar for the month, survey your workplace dynamics and your friend groups. Is there a massive furniture-breaking elephant in the room in your own life that you have been actively colluding to ignore?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Is there a conversation you are dreading so much that you've considered just ghosting the situation entirely? And most importantly, how might you use the exact tools we unpack today? Perhaps starting by vulnerably admitting you're having second thoughts, or buying yourself time with a rain check to finally, bravely bring reality back into the room.
That is a deeply confronting question to mull over. But the tools to answer it are now in your hands.
They certainly are. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the unsaid, the awkward, and the courage it takes to speak up. Keep stepping out onto the dance floor, and we will be right here with you next time we take a deep dive.